I remember the first time we met. We met in 1998, and
1998. Wow.
yeah, yeah. We were in Toronto. We were the first Pan Am Games. And I remember I didn't get a chance to talk to you very much, but I do remember Cedric Moy Yat did a chop for me. But that was only because you had said to me, you'd said, "Hey, you should take this opportunity." So, and it's funny because when Cedric first came up to Toronto for the first time, he drove up to Ottawa that same visit. So I got to spend some time with him. It was a lot of fun. And when you had said, take the time, talk. So we talked some more, and I'd gotten to know him a bit before that. But you had said, hey, he's doing a chop. So he did my name, and that's what you see up here.
Right.
And that's the chop actually there. And he just did my name phonetically, which is really cool. But that experience, that moment, when I met you and I met him, you could just, as a Westerner, I can understand the relationship you had because it was so very, very different than what Westerners were used to. When you talk about Sifu-student relationship, over here, it was very publicized. Martial arts was very not politicized, for commerce, so they made belts, they made competitions, they made all this public stuff. It was very rare to see great quality relationships built in the martial arts world. Like I saw so many between you and Sijo, my Sifu, my Sigong, and mine with my Sifu. And it was at that moment, in 1998, I had gotten my gold sash, I believe, from Sigong in 97. And I was talking to Sifu Pete, and I said, it's funny. I have a gold sash, but so does my Sifu. And I don't feel like I should have this around my waist, And he said, but that's good. It'll keep you humble. It gives you that perspective.
Right.
And he goes, that's good because it means you're going to keep on learning. And I've had such great opportunities because of my Sifu, giving me access to my Qigong and all of you, to be able to look at my Kung Fu and say, it's not necessarily about me. It's about the Kung Fu life. And without that, I wouldn't have understood anything near to what you were speaking about today. So I just have to say thank you so very much for those moments back in 1998 when we first met. I can't believe it was so many years ago, but it's been a profound change in my life. And as a result, my students, and that sort of thing. So let's just go back really quick to the last part. Lay it one more time. You had said that relationship between Sifu student is to be really important. And also the Sifu can have less education in life than, let's say, a student would. So let's say your student becomes a brain surgeon like Adam, right? And he has all this education, very smart. But that's, again, only one piece of your life. And yet, as you spoke about in the system of Wing Chun, there is many components to it, but the most important one is to go through it and become yourself, to create the conditions that are necessary for you to see, to have the ability to create that awareness so you can create the conditions. How then, if you're going to transition from a student to a Sifu, that's something you're considering on doing, what can you advise someone to start focusing on if they want to take that as something serious in their life to become a Sifu?
First, understand better the process of learning, because most of the time, Sifus, they go against the system because they need to create some, imagine, very practical issues we have. For example, let's say you're gonna teach Kung Fu, so you need a space. You have two options. You have your own space, maybe your basement, or you have a building, because then it's okay, own building. Or most of the time you have to rent it or use a space in another school or gym or whatever, right? So maybe you have, most of the time happen the last case. You have a time of, for example, 2 hours in a gym, you know, to teach your kung fu. You have a room, and then you teach them. So then this is one thing. So you have, for example, 7 to 8 p.m. to teach. Then you go there, the student go there, what are you gonna teach? So you show them the Siunim Tao, but then you start to put in parts, for example, like Karate D, when they start to teaching the fundamentals, punching, kicking, you know, or instead work in the system as a whole, like Siunim Tao. No, I just separate Tang Sao from Fok Sao, from Wu Sao, and start to teach all those movements, because we have just 1 hour. So we have to dissect this each part to put it and teaching like a fundamentals. Then you do some sparring before, of course, warm up, then sparring or do chi sao or show something, and that's it. Most of the time they do that. But if you not see, this don't help that much, because it's a good exercise, but not in order to provide all the kind of things you been talking in this podcast, you know? No, because it's very difficult. And then after that, everybody go home and that's it. See? So, but why happened that? Because sometimes the previous experience we had in the martial arts or taekwondo, karate, which they do that, you know, and we don't understand actually the Wing Tsun nature. So once we understand the Wing Tsun nature, that's my suggestion for each one who gonna be Sifu. Then you see, it's impossible to do that. So then you start to change the way you use to share the students, the system. And the other thing, you try to provide more Kung Fu life, because otherwise people will have just certain blinks of the system, but never the system itself. So it's important after that. Now you have time to hang out with students, invite them to go home certain way. Of course, you have to talk to your wife first, otherwise you have a big fight in family, right? To beg the allowance of the boss, you know, to bring some student home, and then you can little by little increase the conditions of learning Wing Tsun until you have your own space, until you fulfill the condition to be full-time instructor. See, that's I think is be the big challenge nowadays.
So it's a vocation.
Yeah, I mean, even you mentioned Eden Sachs, right? He's a doctor, you know, a physician, right? And maybe if, let's say he want to have a kung fu, be kung fu sifu, right? So he can do it. But once he understands, in his particular case, he's a very smart person. He can understand the nature, which I believe he did already. He can do nothing against the system in order to use the system to help him in his teaching. What happened most of the time, we see, you said, oh, this is a tradition. But first, instead accept as a tradition, try to understand why the tradition works. You know, because many times what you believe is tradition is not. It's something which is put in a certain moment of the period of time when during this transition to Hong Kong, to to the West, you know, or even before from Fatsan to Hong Kong. And that thing is, we have some problem with that, you know. So that many times we need to modernize Wing Tsun. Yes, I think it is, but before to modernize, we must to understand why people does that way. So let's come back to our subject. We have Sao Pole. Sao means that, you know, before you start to change, try to understand what we are doing here, or think about what they call tradition, why you do that, or maybe it's what you believe is tradition is not, you know. So this is a very important,
We talk
you know,
about that.
because happen in all martial arts, you know, nowadays.
Let's talk about that tradition.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at, so for example, I'm building my school in my basement now. I'm renovating everything, and it's coming along really well. I'm really excited. And I got permission from my boss. So,
that's a very important detail.
Very important, yeah. When we met, actually,
smart man.
Yeah, we met when I was a Sifu already. So talk about tradition, because at the beginning, and I love how you said that. Try to first understand what it is. So so get clear that there is a process, there is a way, and submit to that. Learn it. So what traditions are important there? So, for example, having a club here and always being available for my students, that what can I use, traditionally speaking, to help that environment, to create the condition for that to be successful?
So first, try to educate them to understand more about learning process, personal learning process, because we are conditioned to go to school. You believe the only place to learn is school, you know. So that's why I like the name club more than the school, because you guys use the name club, you know. I prefer club than school. You know why? Club is a place you go anytime you want, you know, to gathering and have some experience together, you know. School sounds like you have a certain time to go, otherwise, I mean, you have a class, then come back home, you know. So club, I like the name, you know, club. You know, the first time I heard that name, it was in Canada, you know. It was a great name, you know, because then you can come. But even in your case, because in your home, of course, the student cannot come anytime they want, but they can meet each other in another place. Even my Sifu mentioned when he was an Ip Man student, the Ip Man Mokun was so crowded. So him and some brothers, they ran another place to have a private practice among them, you know. So they have a wooden dummy, they have everybody has their own key. Instead, go to Sifu's place, which is too crowded, have no opportunity to test sometimes certain practice. They rent an extra place just amongst a small group of brothers to have opportunity. See, that's what we call creativity. You have to be creative, you know, when you can learn, I mean, in terms of learn Kung Fu. So incentivize this to your students. First thing. Second thing, wanna let them share, incentivize them to share what they discover in order to study the system itself. The system have a lot of or what you call wisdom inside, but because the order of the movements or the curriculum, what it was set up, everything have his own reason to be there.
Mhm.
So our lineage is very fortunate to have the heritage you receive,
Yes.
you know, from our ancestors, you know, from Ving Tsun to, you know, and so on, to Ip Man, Moy Yat, you know, in your case, Sanita, and until you, in my case here. So we are very fortunate to have this, you know. So what I have to do now is study why the system is exactly like that.
Right.
Because then you start to keep you start to understand the profound coherence we have in each movement together with the other, you know. Because in the first sight doesn't look like that. In the first sight looks like everything is a chaotic, randomic, you know. It's no, it's something too old. Maybe those China man doesn't know what they are doing there, you know. But remember, this kind of system was developed by a group of people who really knows about systemic and systematic orders. So it's unbelievable. I can suggest for you a book called Propensity of Tense by the same author, François Julian. They have a chapter talk about the lists, which is exactly the case of Wing Tsun. You know, the list, Wing Tsun is a list of lists. For example, Siunim Tao is a list, Cham Kyu is another list, BUG, Mui Fajon, Lutimpun, Kwan Pacham To. So Wing Tsun is a list of 6 lists. That's what we call system, you know. So when you start to understand the Chinese way to set up systems, then you can understand better why Wing Tsun is like that. It's a very interesting way.